everybody. Welcome to Insight Radio. I'm your host, Danielle Egnew, and you are a fly on the wall to everywhere. I hope you're all doing well. I hope everybody is feeling well. I mean, there's been so much illness and so much craziness going on, and I hope you're actually enjoying your quiet time at home. I'm not even kidding. I mean, we in Montana have been on a shelter in place since March 28th. And today is, of course, the 7th of April, 2020. So, we've been going at it a little over a week here. And I actually really like the shelter in place. Now, I was feeling like my shelter in place has been lasting longer than that because I had this weirdo illness, right? This upper respiratory infection. It wasn't COVID-19, yet I was staying out of everybody's way and I was staying home because I felt absolutely terrible. And literally, I was in my house for probably 2.5 weeks before the shelter in place order came down. So for me, this feels like I've been doing this a lot longer than I have been doing it. And the fact of the matter is, we've only technically been doing this since March 28th, but this is it's coming up on week 4 for me that I've been just staying in my house, except for an occasional run to the grocery store and whatnot. And I have been getting so much done, writing on books, reading for clients. I've been getting so much done being able to channel information and feel the kind of differences that these viruses are making in our DNA. And so, I never actually physically went out and got tested to say that I did not have coronavirus, yet I didn't have any trouble breathing. And I was stinking sick, though. I will tell you, I have never been that sick. So I can't actually officially say that I had it because I never was tested for it. So as far as I know, I didn't have it. However, I didn't go into the hospitals because, again, I didn't have any trouble breathing, just coughing and grossness. But also there was a cold going around that mirrored my symptoms. And my stepmom's a doctor, and we went over this. So I never did go in and get it officially checked. However, the bugs that are going around, I can tell you whether they're coronavirus or they are whatever these flu or cold bugs are, this is some pretty heavy-hitting, incredible stuff. I mean, these cold bugs are working on our DNA because whenever you come down with an illness, your body comes back with information on how to fight the illness. And if your body's never fought the illness before, it takes longer to get rid of it because your body's going, oh my God, I need to write a program to kick out this bug. Literally, I'm writing a DNA program on how to defeat this particular viral strain in my system. So with me being as sick as I was, and I was really, really sick, it was a little crazy, I'm guessing that whatever bug I had, and let me stress to say that there are some regular upper respiratory cold and viral kind of flu icky things going around right now that they're spring bugs, right? So a lot of this is going around, and in a lot of these strains are newer strains. They're not the usual strain of bug. So on top of coronavirus, we've got all of this different viral load that's floating around out there it's not going to kill you, but man, is it sucky in terms of getting rid of it. So that's why I stayed home. I did not want anybody else to get what I had. When I did talk to my stepmom, the doctor, she told me that my symptoms, some of them could have been corona symptoms, but I really did not have the screaming coronavirus symptoms. I just had a screeching upper respiratory infection. So whether you're out there with coronavirus, God, I hope you're not, God bless you, or whether you're out there just with a regular cold, we are really being directed right now by the universe to take good care of ourselves and to not take for granted our health. So when I say that I've been in my own personal quarantine for a month now, that's true, just with the exception of making a run to a grocery store, and during which I actually put on a mask so that any weird leftover bugs that I might have in my system, I didn't want to be breathing them on people. I don't need to be sending people to the emergency room because they think they have the death flu, when in truth, they've just, they don't have COVID-19. They have a rotten bug that's a fairly new bug that's going around at the same time. So when our DNA is being rewritten, and that's what happens, that's how immunity is brought about. And these are huge brushstrokes. There's so many tiny little bitty parts to why our DNA can kick a virus. However, our DNA records information on what works. And next time we get attacked that way, the cell structure goes in, it runs the program, and it wipes out the virus. And it literally reminds me of a computer system because our DNA is the code that we run in the mainframe, which is the flesh or the physical body, so that we can then, go on and be healthy and be awesome. So I'm hoping that you're all healthy out there. I am saying prayers and I am meditating and I am thinking great thoughts for the world. Yet the most intriguing thing to me is that this bug, old COVID-19, seems to have a job to do. So though, yes, anything is possible with having the collective of the planet, human race, come together, meditate out, vibrate out this virus so we kill it from the top down. Yes, of course that is possible. And anything is possible vibrationally. COVID-19 appears to have a job to do, and it's doing it right now. It is deconstructing the old world. And I know I've done a lot of podcasts on this, so I'm not really going to labor that point today, yet except to bring up the fact that COVID-19 is here to do its job. Once it does its job, it will recess for a while. We may have a little bit of a flare-up again as it comes through in the fall for those people who might have been carriers or folks who don't understand that they have the virus. They might not even know that they have the virus. There's an opportunity for it to flare up a little bit that I'm seeing in October, November. However, we're going to do a pretty good job, humanity, if we keep staying indoors. So please keep your butt inside. If we keep staying indoors, and I know we're all going a little stir crazy and we're getting sick of this. However, if we can stay unified in our effort to collectively contain this viral load, then what we're going to find is that, my God, when we come out of this, we not only are going to have a planet that had a break for several months, yet we're also going to have people who had breaks for several months. So today's podcast is all about not ever going back to the way things were, because we're not going to. We're just flat not going to. The stock market is going to recover a little bit. And like I mentioned in other podcasts, it's not going to be dead forever. It's not going to go clear back up to its highly inflated point before it fell, because those were all funny numbers that weren't even real. However, it'll stabilize enough, okay? And so what I think is so interesting during this time frame is to watch this stabilization process and to really see where we're headed. And it's very fascinating because one of the most telling aspects of any transition historically is how a population deals with a mass destructive event. Now, World War II, obviously, and World War I, and all of our awful world wars, these were situations that we brought onto ourselves. And people were dying and people were giving up of themselves in the country. Many countries were doing this, not just in the United States. And afterwards, we learned the toll of god-awful violence. And of course, we didn't stay out of violence very long, because then we looped right back around and went into the Korean War, because war makes money. It makes money for all those stockholders. And I'm looking at how we're never going to go back to having the priorities that we once did. And again, I'm fascinated about the fact that we're not going to go back to having those same exact priorities, because we're not. And what I think is so fascinating about that is going in and recognizing that we don't need all the stuff that we thought we needed 4 months ago to live our lives. We don't need to exert ourselves and buy so many extraneous things. We don't need to travel as much as we do. Not to say don't travel. I love to travel. Yet we don't need to get in our cars as much. We can save those trips. We can bank them up. We're recognizing that none of us are dying on the vine, although we may personally be going a little stir crazy. But our economy, though it's limping, and though the federal government is going to continue to pour money into our pockets, and that's going to keep happening, We've got this payment coming out. It actually hasn't hit anybody's bank accounts yet. This stimulus individual package that people are supposed to be having, in addition to the small business paycheck coverage and all this. I mean, it's taken forever to get this stuff going. Yet, there's a lot of people that need this money. So they're going to do another payout that I'm seeing for individuals past this one. And they're just trying to keep people afloat so that we can get through this time frame, keep people in their homes, and be able to launch forward in a much more reasonable way, basically, once we start forward. And the biggest part is here that we as a society just aren't going to want to go back to that great big rat race. People are going to return. I'm looking at the future here. People are going to return to their commutes, and they're going to be excited, to get back in their cars and go to work and see other people and do their thing. Yet we are going to be seeing resounding transitions in people's work requests. And of course, there's still going to be people who get in their car and commute. That's the way it goes, especially if you're in Southern California. That's a lifestyle. Yet for many people, the bloom is off the rose as far as obsessive consumerism. And this is something I talked about a couple of podcasts ago. And we're right here. Our X marks the spot of where we are right now in terms of the global economy and global society, just not really wanting to go back to the frenetic pace. Now, we're all going to go back to making a living. We're all going to go back to work, And here in Montana, we are on this shelter-in-place order until April 24th. And that may get extended. We were supposed to be off of it April 10th, and the governor extended it to April 24th. Our children in Montana have been home from school since March 6th. So my poor daughter is super going out of her mind because she's basically been home for the same amount of time that I've been home with this illness. And it's just bummed her out. She wants to get back to school so badly. She can't stand it. She's sick of it. She loves school. She loves her peers. She loves her teachers. She loves her classes. And she misses that interaction. And I'm really kind of, after a month in the house, I'm over a month in the house, I'm really missing, jumping in the car and running up to the mountains and catching a cocktail and walking into some spring thaw creek that's super icy cold and get your full attention. I'm missing all that right now, and we can't quite do that. Well, we can walk in the creek. We just can't stop for the cocktail, but I suppose, past a grocery store. However, what we're looking at here is a transition in people's consciousness. And that's really the overarching message of this podcast, is that we have been changing on a genetic level and on a societal level for a couple of months now. And the more we stay at home and we're just around our people and our families, the more we begin to recognize that we don't need all the stuff we thought we needed. So what does that mean for our economy? Well, our economy is going to continue to do its thing. We're not going to repair it overnight. And when I look into the future, we're going to be feeling ripples off of this stock market jag for years. We're going to be feeling economic shakeouts from this for the next 10 years, trying to deal with the tax burden of trillions of dollars of debt. However, I can guarantee you that there is going to be some sort of funny little governmental something that they're going to pull here that is related to not automatically passing this on to every single taxpayer at a later time because it was emergency fund relief. But that being said, our country's already trillions of dollars in debt. We are so in debt right now because, again, when big business does well, it's all a great big party, but it's a false party. So there's a lot of money being used that is government money for things that it shouldn't be used for. So, and a lot of it's business related, big business related. So here we're going into a new culture, a new time. And this new culture and new time is going to be very focused on what makes you happy, who you are, what you're able to do with yourself. How do you change your job so you're no longer commuting, 75 miles? Boy, that seemed real normal at one time when we were all in a big fat rat race, yet we've been pulled out of that rat race. And also being at home, being still, resting. This actually writes into your DNA as well. And people need a purpose. Don't get me wrong. We need to be working. We need to be out there exacting our purpose in the world. Yet our DNA was and is still struggling under trauma markers because of the types of stresses that we had put on ourselves in our life. So when we look at where we're going to be, I can feel myself, gang, having been changed deeply through this experience and through literally just staying home for the last month and some change. I am changed because of that. I can feel a connection to the earth that I didn't have as strongly before because I was going and, obviously Road Angel production is on hold. We can't do anything because we can't go anywhere. So we're just doing what we can do in post-production right now in editing, but there's nothing else we can do. So I've literally been just receiving information and just being with the earth. And how weird is it, right? The day just flies by. My wife and I were both just like, what is happening? We've been binge watching Outlander, which is a phenomenal show. If you can get past the kind of kitschy Harlequin romance sex scenes every 5 seconds that last and last and go and go and go. I kind of think it's like softcore porn for housewives or something. But if you can get past that, the story is so great and the acting is just tremendous. It's a tremendous show. And so I'm on season 1 of Outlander. We just finished it. We just started season 2. So, on we go, right? And my wife and I have just been watching this. Well, why am I talking about watching TV? I'm talking about that's something I would never do. Is sit there day in and day out and just watch television. I mean, maybe at night for a little while, with the family when you're eating and everybody's brain needs to decompress and you just need a minute. Okay, I get that. Yet our DNA, and this is what my point was, my DNA has changed through all of this because I am no longer hopping from one paving stone that's lit on fire to another. And I'll tell you from personal experience, I'll just use me as an example. I'm a fairly busy person and I'm doing this TV show and I'm writing a book and I'm writing blogs and I'm catching up. I'm doing this podcast and I'm doing meditations for the podcast and doing music. And there's many things I'm doing in my day. Reading for clients, for God's sakes. Many things. And you just don't recognize that you are the frog in the frickin' boiling pot of water. Do you know what, right? You don't recognize that you're the frog in the boiling pot of water until you're out of the water. And I went through a little bit of a withdrawal of, okay, wait, I'm supposed to be doing all this stuff. It didn't last very long though, thank God. And what I've been doing is recognizing that my body has changed and my physiology has changed. And yes, granted, I had a death cold that was ridiculous. Yeah, and that knocked some weight off of me because I wasn't eating a ton. However, I can feel the musculature in my body is different. My midsection, where I'll hold weight, if I'm going to hold weight, I'll hold it in my tummy. And that's just been releasing weight because I'm not stressed out. And I'm not somebody that naturally considers themselves stressed. I'm not a stressy person. We've had some stresses this past year. My family, we had some business weirdness with my wife's business, and we had a quick move back to Billings, and we got everything stabilized, and so moving was weird, and there were some weird things in 2019. That's why I was real happy to see the door smack it right on the ass crack as it left us. I really wasn't crying in my soup about 2019. However, where we're at now, there is such an enormous appreciation for being, right? So my DNA has changed. It's different. I'm no longer in a frenetic place of driving myself to have to do 50 billion things at one time. And neither do I want to go back to that. It's really interesting. I was speaking with the production manager, Melissa Siana, and the other producer of Road Angel, Mary Erickson. And we had some, I guess you could say maybe online thoughts of things we could be doing for Road Angel and whatnot. And at the end of the day, we kind of came up with the fact that they just weren't the right things to do because it just didn't feel right. And this is a time frame where feeling into our next move is the way we're going to go. Now, for those of you that follow this podcast, if you follow blog posts that I've put out, I've talked about the fact that we were going to be going into the feminine time frame, and I was talking about this years ago, and how it was going to be on the heart chakra and how things felt. We would know by how they felt. And it was really interesting because I had a lot of folks, talk on my blogs and write me emails and say, well, now hold on, Danielle. What are you talking about here? You're saying that we're going to go from a very structured society, this was a couple years back, to somehow navigating through what, spidey senses? Our gut? It doesn't feel good, man. If it feels good, do it. If it doesn't, let it slide. What are you, adopting the 1960s parameters? What are you doing? And I had a bit of a difficult time explaining that concept, except to say our DNA will be shifting with a wave and resonation that's going to be hitting the earth that will change, that vibration will change us. And we've also got 5G and other things. By the way, 5G, gang, please understand, 5G is not causing coronavirus. So can we just not freak out about that? It's not causing it to grow or anything else. If anything, it would shake it apart because of its high millimeter wavelength. But anyway, we'll get to that. When I was talking about this time frame several years ago, I mentioned that the feminine time frame was going to be heavy on feeling your next move. Well, how is that possible? How is that possible when we are anesthetized with a schedule that keeps us knocked out? Really? I mean, how is it possible when you're so dang tired that you're noticing on the calendar it's been weeks and weeks since you've had any meaningful intimacy with your partner because you're both freaking exhausted when you get home? That's not a good thing. Our root chakra is our largest chakra. If you are someone who is blessed with a partner, have lots of healthy intimacy. I know lots of people right now during this particular pandemic who are staying home and rocking the boat there. And I've been joking with some friends of mine, what do we call the generation of kids that are all going to come out of the pandemic? The Generation P, is that what they're going to get called? I mean, God, there was the baby boomers, and what is this? The baby stay-inners? I mean, they'll have to figure something out. However, for those of us that are going forward in this time frame, feeling our way is very important. So going back to Road Angel, we had this big discussion about some stuff we were going to do, and it didn't feel right. And on paper, it was great, okay? And on paper, prior to this outbreak, I would have just muscled through it and it would have been great and people would have enjoyed it and it would have been fun. However, in my body has become this even more than it was. So yay me. However, my body has become this vibrational sensing element, even more than it was. And it was a lot in the first place, let me tell you. Yet this is about the vibrational sensing aspect is something that my DNA is picking up. And you can feel in your body differently now because we've slowed down long enough to connect with the flesh, to allow the DNA to rewrite itself and to release some of the coping mechanisms that were necessary day to day. We're not calling on those same stress hormones that we were. Now, I'm not saying there's no stress. Please understand that. And there are our first line folks out there, our first wave of defense folks, our doctors, our nurses, our mail carriers, our grocery store clerks, even our teachers who had 24 hours to come up with how the heck they're going to teach kids for a month of remote school. Okay. And I'm just going to give a shout out to our teachers because we're not getting a lot of shout outs for them. It wasn't the federal government. It wasn't our state governments. It was our individual teachers themselves that rallied and figured out how to teach kids remotely with zero heads up. And I'll tell you something that just ratchets my hide sideways is that insufferably arrogant saying, well, those who can do, those who can't teach. Let me tell you something. Those who can better than those who are doing teach. Okay? Teachers shape the world. They shape the humans that shape the world. Ergo, teachers shape the world. Teachers are massive empaths. They are incredible stewards of emotional, sociological, and psychological structure. And our teachers have just risen to the occasion like you cannot believe. Now, this is for our teachers, okay? And my mom is a retired school teacher. My stepdad is a retired school teacher. My father was a college instructor for doctors at the University of Arizona University of Washington, University of Arizona. Now, I went there. My father was instructing medical students at the University of Washington. And so, we've had this incredible opportunity to see people rise to the occasion and become amazing. And we're not going to go backwards. We're not going to get less amazing. Okay? Now we know what we're capable of. And so again, thank you to all the delivery drivers out there. Think about the people sorting the mail. They've got to touch all that mail. I'm hoping they're wearing gloves and all kinds of things. I'm guessing they are. Our mail carrier is coming to our door every day. So we've got a lot of people, our police officers and our first responders that have to be out there among them. There's a lot of people out there. And if I've forgotten somebody, add it to the comments of this podcast, because really what we're looking at here is a pretty tremendous, offering by humanity to keep us rolling, to keep things going. The hardware store employees, for goodness sakes. My God, here in Montana, they considered the liquor stores an essential service. Yeah, I think they were a little worried what was going to happen. Montanans love the outdoors. They love getting together and doing things in the outdoors. And I think the governor and the governor's infinite wisdom was like, let's not lock them in with absolutely nothing. These people are going to freak out. So anyway, I thought that was kind of funny. Liquor store, Montana, essential service. Welcome to Montucky. Here we are. So how are we going to be changed going forward? Well, we are not going to be compelled to go back to this frenetic, gross work cycle because in our bodies, it won't feel right. We'll just feel it. We'll feel like, ooh, this is weird. This is wrong. This is not something I should be doing right now. We'll feel it physically in our bodies. Now, gang, we used to feel stuff in our bodies all the time. And we can't feel in our bodies to the capacity that to vibe out everything. We can't use our bodies as a giant reflective, vibrating tool of the universe unless we slow down enough to be able to feel the vibration of the earth. Now, here's a crazy question for you. How many of you, since we've just kind of pulled the plug, and we have really pulled the plug, I mean, this gives a whole new palette to the color wheel called staycation. Wow, this is like technicolor differences in even a vacation, because we go on vacation and we're running and we're going and we're looking at stuff and we're swimming in the ocean and we're going on this tour, and then we come home to take a vacation from our vacation because we just went out and did, right? Well, that's not actually my favorite kind of vacation. I like to go and just be. I like to just vibe it out and follow your nose and just feel it. So we are not going to go back to frenetically killing ourselves for the almighty dollar. People will sell off stuff. They will downsize. They will sell their great big houses. So here's a future cast. We are going to see houses hitting the real estate market like you wouldn't believe. And they are big houses. They are expensive houses. People are going to be dumping these properties because they don't want to be in a situation again where they're stuck with all this overhead and no way to really take care of it. Now, of course, gang, not everybody's going to sell their big house. And there are going to be those people jumping right back into the rat race because they haven't really wanted to connect with themselves. Or maybe they just loved the rat race. What the heck? There's nothing wrong with that. Yet for most of us, this process has been about finding our sacred center. And those are the words that these angels use, sacred center. And that sacred center exists within each nucleus of each cell that we have. And it feels vibration. And then it communicates to us through that gift of empathy, through that vibration, if it's a good move or not for us to take. And the more we slow down, the more we can Bluetooth up with the Schumann resonance in the earth, with earth frequencies, and look up the Schumann resonance, SCHUMANN. Typically, it sits at about 7.83 hertz. It's a heartbeat, if you will, of the earth. And you can watch the Schumann resonance change because the Schumann resonance is affected by human participation. It's really interesting. There was just a world meditation, in fact, to quench coronavirus. And the Schumann resonance spiked when everybody's energies who chose to participate in that meditation, when everybody's energies got online, man, it vibrated the earth also. Because everyone slowed down, got in sync in a like-minded fashion towards a like-minded goal or like-hearted goal. And it created a very specific vibration that you could see through the Schumann resonance, if you want to call them detectors or whatnot. So the earth has a pulse. We have a pulse. Our brains get in sync. Our brainwaves get in sync with the Schumann resonance. And that's when we start to feel happiness. That's when we start to feel, we start to feel all kinds of great yummy chemicals that are created in our brains when our brain Bluetooths with that Schumann resonance. So this is one of the reasons that we're not going to go back to the way things were, because many of us have slowed down and are really understanding that we can feel in our cells what the right thing to do is. So going back to this somewhat trivial example of Road Angel and some stuff we were going to maybe do on the webpage, it just didn't feel right to me. So I brought it up to our production team, and it wasn't that it was a bad thing to do. It's just the timing didn't feel right. And generally, I'm somebody that really pays attention to those hints and those whispers and that gut feeling, because that's my work, is to interface with the universe and do some translations here. Yet even for me, this is a changed experience. This is a different experience for me. Now, maybe there's those of you out there who are much more grounded people who get in sync with the earth in a much more indigenous way. So maybe this is not hitting you in such a profound way. I tend to be such a top chakra person, communicating with these angels through the crown, the heart, the third eye, the throat, sometimes the solar plexus, but I'm pretty top chakra generally, meaning what I tend to use the most. And I really should be focusing a little more on that sacral and the root, because that's what anchors us to the ground. Well, through this illness and through literally just all I could do was lay there. That was it. Just lay there and watch Outlander. Just lay there. So while I'm laying there, my body is decompressing. My cells are releasing vibrations that I had stored from always having my chi up at a certain level because I was working. And it wasn't that I was a neurotic person. It's just that that's the 21st century first world chi level. It's all working. We're just pushing. And we don't even realize that we're in fifth gear. That's the effed up part about all this. So there I'm laying there, and I can feel my cells just discharging all of this energy that's been stored, getting ready to use. What are we going to do next? It was nuts. And I'd be sitting there and my arm would twitch, or my shoulder would flick, or my foot would kick up. It was, and my wife was just kind of like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, yeah. There's just some discharging going on here in my cells. And once all of that static, think of wringing out a sponge, okay? Once all that static came out of my system, I could feel the earth. I could feel it through the floor. And I can feel the earth. I can get into earth feelings and all this. Yet it's so omnipresent at this point that I don't feel like I can separate myself from the earth. And I'm glad, because we all should be grounding to this level. And I didn't do it on purpose, gang. It's not like I did anything on purpose. This just kind of happened. And whatever viral load I had went in and opened up some DNA portions of my body. And I had it for a long time. So it took a while for my body to figure out how to fight it off. And eventually I ended up on some antibiotics because I got the secondary infection out of it. And what was weird is after the antibiotics, they cleared everything up, thank God. However, I could feel that my body was just sort of like it's gone through some cellular metamorphosis. And at this point, there's no way to put that back. I mean, I could try to throw myself into a pit of stress and a frenetic work cycle. And of course, I've got obligations, like everybody, right? Yet how I am choosing to structure my time in the future is very different because of this. And the whole production team and I got talking about it. And both the gals that I work with, as far as the production heads, we've got, of course, a crew, but the production heads, we were talking and it was just like, yeah, I'm not really feeling doing that thing online either. So I'm going to do something totally different that I'm just feeling like I should do. Yet this is a time frame of feeling it out. Let your body tell you the truth. Because for those of you, again, that have been following these podcasts and my blogs and all kinds of translations and teachings and stuff that I've put out over the years, you know that in this feminine time frame, in the yin time frame, it's not as much about building our road and progressing forward and wagging our sword forward and look at me, I'm the leader. That was the masculine time frame. This time frame is more about, I'm going to cook some cookies, but with no recipe. I'm going to feel it. You ever cook something? I'm a terrible baker. However, have you ever cooked something and just kind of went with it? And you could just feel the ingredients. Or maybe you've built something in a shop and you don't have a blueprint, but you can just feel how it comes together. Or artists who just feel how those songs or those pictures or portraits come through their bodies. This is who we're meant to be, humanity. This is where we find our miracle center, because we're not distracted and we're not all up here in this level of, oh my God, I gotta do. We sit into the body and we sit into ourselves. So in the future, in the not so distant future, it's called the summertime of 2020, we're going to be dumping big houses. And it's interesting, economies that run paycheck to paycheck on very high ceiling debt, like cities like Los Angeles, where I lived for 11 years. And cities like Bozeman, Montana, we lived there for a year. I love Bozeman. I love LA. Yet those cities are extremely expensive to live in. Even Bozeman's crazy. They were charging $700,000 in Montana, you got to understand here, for a 3-bedroom house, 2-bath. And when the average wage in Montana is between $34,000 and $45,000, you can guarantee that there's not folks who just work at your average grocery store buying those homes. There's a lot of money that moves into Bozeman because it's one of the gateways into Yellowstone Park. And I'm sure you've all heard of Big Sky or the Yellowstone Club or all that fancy stuff up there. I used to live literally right down the hill from Big Sky and from the Yellowstone Club. And for those of you that don't know what it is, that's a multi-billion-dollar installment up there where the houses are, $30-40 million, which is insane for Montana. And Justin Timberlake owns a home up there. And there's celebrities that they don't even go through Bozeman. They land in Bozeman. And I used to see private helicopters over our house all the time because we lived right up against the mountains. And the helicopter going up into the mountains to take people to their private helipads where they lived up there. So when we talk about these areas that are closing down and people are blowing out and selling out and moving out of Bozeman, and we're going to see that in our larger cities, this is where our economy is going to get a buckle, is our larger cities, just like in 2008, Things started getting wiggly in 2018, but our big recession was in 2008. And we watched our larger cities shutter up and do all these things. Well, Seattle is boarded up, and so are many other major cities. Now, we do have an economic stimulus package coming. However, if you live in a larger city, just be prepared that it's going to take a while for you guys to really get up and running. And I see a lot more federal money, and this is a future issue, coming in for our larger towns. The way that the governors are appealing, because it's harder to get the industry back up and running. It's harder to get money into small businesses' pockets. In rent on Ventura Boulevard is $30,000, a month for a little bitty space. There's a really big disparaging difference between what it costs to start up and what it costs to go forward. So we're going to watch society and human beings dump their high risk and high investment items for smaller risk, smaller investment items. And a lot of that is housing. We're also going to see people buying their cars outright, less leasing, more buying of older vehicles. For us in this generation, this is kind of what happened to the folks in the Depression. And actually our worst economic times aren't upon us yet. And we're going to get through those with some grace, because by then we will have let go of this idea that everything has to be brand new and amazing, and I have to have the latest this, and I have to work like this in order to have all that brand new stuff. We will have detoxed off of this toxic sociopathic consumerism, at least here in America, to a big degree. I mean, we're still going to buy stuff, gang. We're Americans. We buy things. We're still going to buy stuff. Yet instead of going out and just filling your cart with stuff, you're thinking about what you're putting in your refrigerator, because what's going to keep? It takes 30 days to develop a habit, and many people have been locked in their house. I got a cousin, my sweet cousin Misha, down in Morgan Hill, California, and she's got this gorgeous house. It's absolutely beautiful, and it's not super huge. However, she's been spending time gardening and getting her backyard absolutely gorgeous. And so people are going to be treating their homes as more of a personal sanctuary. And here's a funny thing. I used to joke about this with my friends in Los Angeles. I had some friends who had some really wicked cool houses, gang. I mean, we're talking very, very, very lovely, very successful people that chose to invest in beautiful homes. So these humongous homes would be up in, Mulholland Drive, or they would be in Brentwood, which is a fancy, fancy area. I think Beverly Hills kind of place. And you go into their houses, and these are folks who have had their homes since the 1980s, the 70s. They've hung on to them. And they've cultivated these gorgeous gardens. And you would go outside and smell all the flowers in LA. And there's a lot of places in Los Angeles that smell beautiful. There's a lot that don't, but there's a lot that do. And so you could watch out and just watching the birds and smelling the flowers. Well, the point I'm making is that the folks who cultivated those environments spent a lot of time at their houses. Then I knew other people who came into newer money and ran up and bought really big houses because it's fun in California if you have the money. Throw a party, look over the ocean, rock on, man. It's the beach culture. And those folks, in order to keep that house, were never in it. And they would be commuting. They would be out of their house for 14 and 15 hours a day. And they would only be there for like 6 hours to sleep and turn around and get a shower, and then they're out again. So here's this gorgeous, beautiful place that nobody had any time to spend in. So why am I bringing this up? Because of the changes in our DNA that are being triggered by not only slowing down, by not only allowing the vibration of our body to just stop, by not only not having our brain driving us like a slave taskmaster to do things, we have changed this need to roam. So if you think about tribal humans, okay, think about all of us living in caves 20,000 years ago. Or really beautiful stone temples if we go back 60,000 years. But let's go to the cave part. And we're all living in caves, or we're living in, very interesting structures that we may have built out of stone. And although there are nomadic indigenous peoples, of course, back in the day, a lot of those civilizations, they didn't really wander. Now, I'm not suggesting don't go see the world and broaden your horizon, for God's sakes. What I'm saying is that within our DNA is a need to create community, a need to connect, and a need to nest. Now, when you do those things, when you create community and you nest and you create within your own village or block or neighborhood or small town or large town, but you create a small town in your large town, guess what you don't need? More experiences, more stuff, more. You know why you don't need it? Because what makes you happy is the environment that you've cultivated. Your investment at that point has become other people, has become your neighbors. It's become your own backyard. It's your whole entire world. And what's important shifts and changes. And why is that a big deal? Well, it's a big deal because, again, we're talking future cast. We're talking about never going back to the way it was before. Of course, there's going to be certain people that hang on to their houses and investments and all these other things. Yet many people will be giving up their living arrangements if they can't create community there with one another. And so that's something that I'm seeing. So what does that do? Well, when you dump a bunch of houses on the market, it lowers property values, which is really interesting because at the same time, all these lower property values are happening. The Fed is making sure that mortgages are at an affordable, buyable rate. So people want to get mortgages and take out mortgages. So this is going to create another swarm of buying, even though people are dumping things down and the prices are going to be down and all these things. And that's really going to be more towards the end of 2020, middle of 2020, more so the end going into 2021, because people are going to start thinking, just like our Depression era folks, people are going to start thinking, how can I conserve my resources? And what happens if my income is ever threatened again? What happens if I'm locked in my house again? Will the utility company give me a break? Or are they going to want their rent? So our DNA within it is encoded with the need to create community. So let's go back a couple years to these podcasts and teachings that I was bringing through about the feminine time frame and how it was going to be huge on going from the macro community, the large, the big, the federal, the blah, to the micro, to our neighbors, to changing things in our own hometown. Remember all those podcasts? I bet you do. So that's where we're at on our timeline. And we're still in our lock-ins, and we're still in our shelter-in-places, and we're still in our lockdowns. We're still quarantined. Yet I want you to survey your quarantined space. What have you really, really become, not I want to say dependent on, but what's your new routine? Because we are absolutely positively encoded in our DNA to create routines to keep us on track, on schedule. So here we have this routine. What is your routine? I get up and our coffee maker died, by the way, through this whole pandemic, which just really kind of sucks. So we had a French press sitting up in the cabinet. So we pulled down the French press and my wife, we have a little coffee boiler water thing, boil the water, make the coffee. That's the new routine in the morning, is make the French press coffee. Then it's sit there and talk and visit and have a great discussion. Then it's my wife getting ready for her day and the video she's going to create for her online Kinesi program and, her online live folks that she's going to go coach and just all this cool stuff. And I'm sitting there looking at my client list and what am I going to get done today on the podcast and on the book and etc. So our new routine is a lot more communion together in the morning. Now, human beings, gang, this has been hard, this separation for people, because human beings excel with human contact. And even the most introverted of my friends who are like rocking this whole thing, I have friends who are so rocking the shelter in place because they're huge introverts and they're like, oh, force me to stay home and read a book. How terrible. Poor me. However, what's fascinating about this is being able to stay in that space or that position. And for an extrovert like myself, I'm not suffering through it. I mean, I'm kind of ready to maybe go out and have something to eat in a restaurant. And we are supporting our local restaurants. We are ordering out and doing curbside pickup because we want to make sure that our local restaurants don't go under during this time frame because it's just too hard. It's too hard for them. However, what I notice in my routine is that not only is the connection with my wife such an integral part, and it's not that we're not connected, gang, but come on, you get up in the morning, she'd be out the door to her gym. She has a 4 a.m. class. I'm like, oh God, I'm sleeping past 4 a.m. And then we kind of, hook up later in the day at dinner time to kind of convene. The child goes to school, comes home. Now we're going to get more to a regular schedule. However, it's going to be more important for those of us who have been locked in with other people to be able to see those people on a more regular basis. And for those who have been struggling with shelter in place and you're by yourself and you've been Facebooking friends and FaceTiming and Skyping and Zooming. I mean, poor Zoom is crashing. It's got like zillions of more people on it. And it's the poor platform. They're trying to expand it and do the best they can with it. It's been hard for them. So if you've been by yourself, it'll be wonderful to be able to get out among people and feel that and get those hugs and whatnot. Yet overall, what we're figuring out is we are not going to go back to the consumer separatist ideology. And the idea of a nuclear family, right? The nuclear family. When I was growing up with Italian, okay, you had grandma and grandpa, and you might live in grandma and grandpa's house for a while till you got started, and then you maybe moved 2 blocks away. And you were always over at grandma and grandpa's house on the weekends. You didn't go spread it out to the whole entire world. And not to say that's a bad thing. There's some families that probably don't want to spend a lot of time together. I get that. Yet when we look at the push in the 1960s and 70s to develop the nuclear family, I don't know if you remember that culturally, but there was a huge push for people, don't borrow your dad's car, own your own new car. Don't live on the same land as your family. Go get your own new house. Don't borrow those jeans from your sister. You go buy your own new jeans. It was all commerce-based. And again, I recognize that there's a lot of families out there that we don't want to be interacting with, and I understand that. Yet I'm talking in terms of human genome. I'm talking in terms of our design. I'm talking in terms of the fact that we are pack mammals. You look at apes. Apes run around in groupings. They don't necessarily just hang out by themselves. They're in a group. So we are a collective, and we are learning through this to listen to the vibration that comes through the cells of our body to point us in the right direction. And I'm telling you this right straight up right now. It is going to be so much harder for you to second guess yourself in this time frame because you're just going to know stuff. Everybody's level of clairsentience has just jacked up about 150% because the cells of our body can feel the resonation of the earth. Why is that important about knowing the future? Well, to go down the rabbit hole of physics for just one moment, the earth is a giant spinning electromagnet. We are, of course, one item amongst billions and billions and quantrillions. That's probably not even a word, but that's a lot. Quantrillions. Quantrillions of items that all share in this quantum field. And the quantum field is augmented through electromagnetic energy amongst many other types of particle resonation and wave resonation. It's the fabric of the universe, okay? So electromagnetic radiation or electromagnetic vibration really does rattle the quantum field quite a bit because that's really, what's holding space together. Well, basically gravity, some good wishes, and a sneeze from God, I guess. I don't know. However, that electromagnetic energy or that electromagnetism in the quantum field is huge. Our brain is an electromagnetic organ. Our heart is an electromagnetic organ. So the electromagnetism that the earth places out into the quantum field becomes a giant amplifier. Now, for those of you who have lived in rural areas, if you've ever been driving from BFE 1 to BFE 2 in parts unknown, which there are many here in Montana, and you're out in the middle of nowhere and you've seen nothing, your cell service is crappy, you're super glad you have Sirius. I have Sirius in my car because there's so many places out in Montana that there is no cell service. There just isn't. There is no radio signal out in the middle of nowhere in Montana. Fourth largest state in the union. We just broke 1 million people. We have way more land, cows, and sheep and grass and trees than we do people here. So what's that got to do with the quantum field? Well, when you're out there driving around and you look up and out of nowhere, there's this funny little bitty hut and a big old power relay and a funny looking radio tower that's, 25,000 feet tall. It's epic. Out in the middle of nowhere. Well, that's a relay station. And so in rural areas, they'll have relay station to boost signals that come from BFE 1 going to BFE 2. So the Earth, being a giant spinning electromagnet, works as a relay station to boost all the signal in the quantum field. Are you following me? So I want you to think of the quantum field as a thin wall, and we're listening with our ear pressed to the wall, and we can hear all the stuff going on the other side of the wall, and that's how we decide. Maybe we're listening to our neighbors make dinner, and we get inspired to make spaghetti because our neighbors are making something with tomatoes. The quantum field vibrates like that wall. We're listening through the wall. It vibrates into our cells. Everything everybody else is thinking, feeling, needing, wanting, fearing, dreaming about, loving, hating, it's coming through our, quote, ear through the wall, except it's vibration. So the Earth is magnifying that. Okay? Now, when we all slow down, what are we able to do? We are able to access the quantum field in a much more profound way. Because our vibration, our frequency is much more of that which is the frequency of the Earth, of the giant relay station. So I want you to think of being a television and switching your channels all over the place. All of a sudden, you're on Earth Channel. And on Earth Channel, you're receiving incredible information. And that's about the past, the present, the future. The quantum field, gang, goes through all time, all space-time. If I'm reading for a client and I see 4 or 5 or 7 different timelines for that person, which is the highest probability of action that they're going to take that results in an outcome, because as I always say, we don't have one big fat future. That makes the free will rodeo just a little obsolete, doesn't it? So when we feel into that quantum field and we can use and feel the frequency of the Earth's relay station as a booster, we're feeling the past, we're feeling the present, we're feeling the future, we're feeling the far future, we're feeling everything, and our body becomes a mini relay station because we are now on the same frequency as the broadcasting relay station, which is the Earth. So the Earth is BFE 1 and we're BFE 2, and we're receiving that booster signal from the quantum field. Okay? Now, with all of us slowing down, we have changed our frequencies. And it's funny because we think of raising the frequency, raising the vibration. Well, technically that's true, even though we're slowing down, which is kind of funny from a physics perspective because if you slow a wave down, it makes it longer and bigger and deeper and whatever. So we're still vibrating at this high level. I want you to imagine a rocket ship that's gone through the atmosphere. And when the capsule separates from the shaft of the rocket that has all the fuel in it and it drops away, we're still moving upwards, and the lower frequency, the slowing down, takes that extra off of us, and that extra piece of the rocket falls to the Earth. So the capsule is lighter, it's up out of the atmosphere. And this is what's going on in our DNA. We are becoming the second relay for the Earth. And the Earth is a giant magnifier of the quantum field. So this is why when we meditate, we see a reaction in the Schumann resonance. It's pretty amazing. And you can find that all over YouTube and Google, so I'm not going to eat the podcast up with that. And why that happens, there's a lot of explanation out there for it that's scientific. It's cool. Look into it. Yet we're not going to go back to the way that things were. We are forever changed as a world, as a global economy, as a society, as people. We're finding compassion in ourselves that we didn't even know we had for people. Because when we slow down long enough to just be hoist in the way that we feel and feel this resonation of the earth, we realize we are deeply supported. And I've heard this from people all over the world. I've got clients all over the world that are telling me that weirdly, they feel crazily supported right now. They can't even decide why. They're watching their bank account drain out. They're calling their bill companies saying, hey man, sorry, I can't go to work. I can't pay that bill. Yet they feel so peaceful. I feel peaceful. And I just had the world's worst cold. Not the worst cold. There's people out there struggling with COVID-19 who have a lot worse illnesses, but it was pretty bad. And so to feel this sense of contentment, I mentioned our miracle potential earlier. If you're going to plant a seed for something like a miracle, which would be something whose outcome would be so extraordinary that it would be difficult to decide away that outcome through logic, okay? A miracle. Something that happens that's extraordinary that you're not expecting, that is also coming in a timely fashion. Well, remember, the quantum field hears everything. It's the ear against the wall. It feels everything. And as we come out of this frenetic, I feel very purposeful disconnection of humanity from the quantum field. I mean, we're technically connected, but we don't feel it as much as we do when we're running after things, when we're distressed, when we have all the cortisol stress hormone flowing through our body because we're freaking out. We don't feel the earth because we're in fight or flight mode. But people are actually slowing down long enough to be able to feel their surroundings and to be able to feel whether they want to talk to somebody or not, or feel whether they want to, build a deck or not, or go on in their job or not. We have people en masse right now all over the planet who are having to sit with some of their biggest demons that they have been running from for 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years. And now they're sitting with them. And there are people who are struggling. And most people are actually weirdly doing well. There are people who are deeply struggling. And if you're struggling out there, you know what? Write on the comment thread of this particular podcast. If you're struggling, let people know so people can send you love. So people can send you messages of hope. We're so taught not to reach out from the old world, broken. The imbalanced patriarchal was all based in shame. That's how it controlled people. And so we were taught not to ask for the help we want to receive. However, part of this vibration in our cells at this point is being able to just resonate, vibrate, just be, feel into that quantum field. Trust your dang gut, will you? Because your gut's always been good. And in that is, we're talking about miracles. In that, trust, in that rested place. That is the perfect womb that attracts miracles. Because we're not in chaotic opposition energetically with the quantum field. If I really want, oh gosh, I'm in need of $10,000 and that's really going to be able to catch me up and I'll be able to pay my bills. In the need of this $10,000, if I am too busy doing, I want you to think of Wilson, the volleyball at the end of Castaway. And there's old Tom Hanks splashing around in the storm. And every time he splashes, he pushes off Wilson. And that's what we do when we are in chaos in the quantum field. It pushes everything out. All our little Wilsons are out there just, Wilson, just going over the waves. And then we freak out more, right? And we see that $10,000 floating away and we're splashing and going crazy and it goes faster away from us. And we're sure God hates us. Then we blame God. If there is a God, you hate me, blah. Sitting in the corner, eating worms. So As you can see, calming into this place and being able to hold a space for being that relay station for the vibration of the earth. And I know you know what I'm talking about. I know you do. I can feel it in you listening to this right now. I can feel into the future and people going, yeah, is that what that is? God, that's weird. Is that what that sense of peace is? Is this resonation that is the mother planet? You notice you're paying more attention to the birds and the deer. God, in Montana, we have birds everywhere. The deer have come into town and are wandering around. They can anyway, yet they're really out and about because people are in. I mean, it takes 10 seconds and there's nature taking everything back, going, man, you guys take your half out of the middle. What the hell with you people? So when you're sitting out there and you're feeling this beautiful space, envision where your belly button is. Okay, that's your sacral chakra. And envision there and just a little lower in that root area, just right there in your tummy or your chest, but it's fun to push it down towards the ground with this earth energy. Just envision, man, this is where I feel that $10,000 that I need. I have no idea where it's coming from. I don't even need to know. I'm just vibrating out. I need $10,000 into the quantum field, and I'm so calm about it. It's crazy. And somewhere that's going to come around, and that's okay. It'll get to me. It'll find me. Because now I am a frequency that is identifiable. That is not chaos. That is not drama. That is not flailing and freneticism and drowning our sorrows and drugs and alcohol and all kinds of other too much sex in a negative way. And just all of these things that we anesthetize ourselves with when we stop running. We realize, oh my God, I am a receiver for paradise. I live in paradise. I don't care if I'm living in an apartment building and I've got a fire escape out back. I'm sticking a flower pot out there. I live in paradise. Whoa. And the people that live here with me are amazing. And we are all going to co-create a universe that's beautiful. It's amazing how peaceful the world feels now in the midst of such a tragedy. And my heart continues to be set into a place of grand compassion for everybody who's struggling, for the people who are losing people, for our medical professionals that have to see some god-awful stuff every day. I mean, god-awful stuff. Making choices about who gets ventilators. People begging them to keep them on ventilators because they have small children at home. I mean, wow. How about we pray for the people who have to make those decisions for their hearts, for their psyches? That's pretty destroying. That's awful. I mean, I can feel that in my chest as I say that. You all probably can, because we are all now connected in a way that we didn't used to be. And this has been our choice to slow down. So stay in this place of, it's like a living prayer. It's like a living testament to the glory of whatever created creation. It is a thankfulness. It is a place of absolute acknowledgement that we're going to be okay. We're going to be okay. We're going to be okay. And allow this change in you to happen. Allow yourself to be that butterfly in the chrysalis, because that's exactly where we're at right now. And we are going to see some things that are a little more Old West coming up and all that and blah, blah, blah. But just being in this space of grand compassion, you feel that desperation that might be draining out of you, and you can't even explain it. Hey, listen, I look at my bank accounts. They're not packed with money. I mean, let's be brutally honest for a minute. I work as an angelic channel. I work as a psychic, okay? Let's see, it's the end of the world, and I'm down to my last $10. Should I buy the overpriced toilet paper or call the psychic? I mean, come on, people. My industry is only fueled by extra income. And it's not an essential service, you know? I mean, I feel that spiritual messages are essential, but let's be real for 5 minutes, okay? It's not an essential service, and that's okay that it's not. I feel it is, yet, you know, it's when it comes right into pinch, are you going to buy food or are you going to call the psychic? Well, I doubt you're reaching for the oracle right there. So that's okay too. And so when we talk about money, I of course, and it's not a sob story, we're doing fine, but it's not like I have billions of dollars banked up. Yet even I, understanding fully that the service that I offer, that my job is not essential for people's livelihood, for their well-being. It's not essential. Because really, as we go on and we start to feel the universe more, I am going to become more and more of a professional confirmer for you guys. And I'm so excited about that. Because you can feel the same angels I can feel. You can hear the same things I can hear. You can recognize that we've never left that quote, Garden of Eden, or this amazing quantum field space that will gift you with everything if we just slow down long enough to accept it. So put that miracle in your chest or your tummy, whatever it is you're worried about that you feel that you need, okay? Put it there and you just reach out to that quantum field and let it come to you. Say, you know what? I'm putting this out here. And you're going to understand because your DNA is going to know that there is provision for you. Why is it happening right now? Well, you know, I did that podcast about how COVID-19 is from bats. It's from animals. And it's absorbed into our bodies. It doesn't replicate itself. It absorbs. Our body absorbs it, which means our DNA is encountering animal DNA. And do you, honest to God, think that a bat or a bear or a moose gets up every day and its first thought is, oh my God, how am I going to make it to Pilates? Really? Oh my God, how am I going to pay my electric bill? No, those animals wake up and they just know food's going to be out there somewhere. Now, when food gets scarce, they get a little spun up. But they just wake up knowing that they were born into a world where the grass grows and they eat it, where the bugs hatch and they eat them, where something else comes along and eats you. But they just know it's there. They know there's going to be a tree with shade to sleep under. Let yourself feel the knowingness that the earth and creation is trying to teach all of us. Because in that knowingness is a lack of desperation, and a lack of desperation is the resonation or the frequency of calm. In the frequency of calm, there is the ability to not only call for miracles, but to receive them, because you just, I don't want to say expect them in this gross entitled way, yet there's just that understanding that they're going to be there for you. I know you know what I'm talking about. And it's weird. And for those of us that came from the 20th century old world, it's super foreign. Because why should it all be there? Because it was always all there. We're never going back to the way it was, gang. Never. I'm never, as an angelic channel, psychic, channeler of off-world people, fairies, any of it, I am never going back to what I was before this. God, if I thought I was a booster before, Lord Almighty. Yeah, I got a few antenna extensions through all of this on my relay station in between BFE 1 and 2. So I'm feeling the universe. And I want to let you know that we are all here for one another. So reach out to your neighbors if you're hungry. Pick up the phone if you're scared. And thank God we are being freed from the tyranny of a system of complete sociopathic psychosis, which snapped the whip of money. It's great to have money. Make it, have it, do it. Yet remember, you are here to enact your purpose. And now that you've slowed down, now that you can really evaluate what's going on, and maybe there's those of you that are still working hard, so don't get me wrong. I understand there are people out there working hard. Yet for those of you that have been given the gift through this time to be able to reflect on this resonational change, come on, here's your homework. Who are you being asked to become in the world, in this new earth? Hashtag new earth. Who are you being asked to bring forward? Because I'll tell you right now, you try not to bring that person forward after all this DNA shifts and after all these resonations happen, and your gut will refuse utter BS. I guarantee it's going to be practically impossible for you not just to be who you are now. Watch. All right, gang. I'm going to wrap this up. I have my people waving at me like, do you know how over time you are? I'm like, yes, I do. And the message is finished and now we're ready to tag out. So everyone, I love you so much. Be aware that you are an incredible transformative creature in an incredible transformative earth. We're going to be okay through this. Go sit with your miracles, resonate them out there. I just used $10,000. It can be anything. It can be health. It can be anything. Understand that you are so hardwired to everything around you. And let's go continue to make our new earth extraordinary. I love you all, and I will see you next week.